Good morning, family. Welcome to another devotional, 5-minute devotional. Sun's coming up, it's early in the morning, and let's get started. I only have 5 minutes, and I got a lot of material to cover. What I want to talk about is I've been reading in Galatians 5:19, where it talks about a battle going on within us every single day, almost every single minute, and that is the battle between the flesh and the spirit. The Holy Spirit is within us, and if we live and walk by the Spirit, we start to bear fruits like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and self-control. But if we don't allow the Spirit allow ourselves to walk in the Spirit, we end up walking in the flesh. And what comes out of us then is bitterness and basically emptiness. And it's all about self, about satisfying ourselves, self-indulgence, selfishness. So what we want to do is we want to live the life of the Spirit. And what happens is, I have a little board here to illustrate what's going on there in the battle between the flesh and the Spirit within us. When we first start out and we're born, and before we were a Christian, we put ourselves on this stool. These are chairs or stools, and this is our heart, and how our heart is either spirit-driven or flesh-driven. So we put ourselves there, and that's when we end up with all these attributes that are not good, like selfishness and self-indulgence and bitterness and emptiness. But in the second circle, there has to be a point. There comes a point where the spirit wins the battle over the flesh, and so God is at the top of sitting on top of this stool, and we are at the foot of the stool, and we put him first. How do we get from here to here? Well, we get from here to here with surrendering ourselves to God, and also confessing to the fact that we are a sinner, and that we want God to be number one and first in our life. How do we go back to this, and how do we go from this circle to this circle? How do we do that? Well, that's a trick question, because we can't. Because there's so many verses in the Bible that say that once we are saved, we are destined to spend eternity with God forever and ever. And the old is gone, basically, it says. Psalms 103:12 and Romans 8:38 and Ephesians 1:13. Which talks about the guarantee of our salvation. So if you want to read those passages, I don't have time to do that right now. But here we are, we're sitting here, and when we put God first, we see those fruits of love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, self-control popping up in our life, and it's just a good thing. But I don't know about you, but I don't always feel like love, and don't always feel joy and peace. And not only that, I'm a sinner, and what happens is that gives us a third circle. And the third circle is we slide back where we put ourselves on top of the stool and put God second. And that's not a good thing. We start to see these flesh-driven attributes come back into our lives. But the good news is God is always here, and he's always waiting for us to come back. And how do we get there? How do we come back to him? Same way we got there in the first place, through surrender and confession. So we say, look, God, I know I messed up. I know I've sinned. I know you're waiting there for me. I want to come back to you. And so sometimes in a day, sometimes like in one day, we can be going bing, 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 back and forth from circle 2 to circle 3. But there are some times when we just spiral down and out of control, and we continue to stay in our sin, and it makes it so much more difficult to come back. But if we continue to do that, bounce back and forth, and we continue to live a life filled with the Spirit, we end up instead of going bing, 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 it might go bing, bing, and we end up in the circle a lot more than we did originally. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about today. Look at that thing. It looks a little complicated, but it's not. I wanted to talk to you about a life filled with the Spirit, the center circle. That's where we want to be, in that center circle. And if we are, we start to see the fruits of the Spirit pop up in our lives, and we see love and joy and kindness and patience and goodness and self-control just showing up everywhere in our life. And it is such a satisfying way to live our lives. So I hope that you live a life filled with the Holy Spirit, and you walk in the Spirit and not in the flesh. So anyway, thank you for listening to the 5-minute video. Love you guys, and see you next time. Bye.